The script begins not with an image, but with sound. A cacophony, a layered symphony of damnation. The percussive, thunderous roar of bolter fire, deep and resonant. The high-pitched, frantic chatter of laser guns like a billion screaming insects. The wet, sickening tear of chainswords biting into flesh. The alien shriek of Xeno's weaponry crackling and hissing. Beneath it all, a chorus of screams. Screams of agony, of fury, of terror, and of ecstatic, unholy worship. The metallic clang of ceramite on steel, the groan of a dying war machine, the distant, soul-shattering detonation that speaks of a city's death. Slowly, as if emerging from the heart of this chaos, a voice begins to speak. It is calm, measured, ancient, and filled with a profound weariness that transcends centuries. It is the voice of a scholar, a witness, an inquisitor who has seen too much. In the heart of a galaxy that has forgotten the very meaning of peace, amidst the funeral pyres of 1,000,000 worlds and the silent tombs of suns long dead, we dare to ask a question. It is a simple question born of arrogance and ignorance, whispered in the halls of power on Holy Terra, and screamed in the blood-soaked fighting pits of Comora. It echoes in the Gestalt consciousness of the Orc, and is calculated by the cold machine minds of the Necrons. A question that by its very nature reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of the reality we inhabit. That question is, who is the strongest? The sounds of battle fade, slightly replaced by a low humming drone, like the thrum of a void ship's ancient heart. We seek a single name, a banner to raise above all others, a definitive victor in a war that has no end. We wish to crown a champion in a coliseum the size of a galaxy, where the spectators are the ghosts of slaughtered civilizations. But this is the first and most fatal of our errors. We seek a simple answer in a universe that trades only in complex, agonizing truths. For power in this age, in this 41st millennium, is not a monolith. It is not a single shining sword. It is a hydra, a beast of many heads, and each head bears fangs dripping with a unique and terrible venom. There is the power of numbers of sheer mass, the power of 1 billion boots marching in unison, of 1 trillion lasguns firing as one. It is the power of the tide, the avalanche, the locust swarm, a blunt, brutal instrument that seeks to crush its enemies under a mountain of its own dead. It is a power that values the species over the individual, the victory over the soldier, the war over any semblance of morality. It is a power measured in corpses, and by that metric it is vast beyond comprehension. But it is a wasteful, inefficient, and brittle strength. A colossus with feet of clay forever teetering on the brink of its own logistical and spiritual collapse. Then there is the power of technology. The power of the perfectly crafted weapon, the impenetrable armor, the starship that can unmake a sun. It is the power of science untethered from ethics of knowledge, pursued for the sole purpose of creating more efficient means of slaughter. It is the cold, clean, and terrifyingly precise power to edit reality, to command the laws of physics as a general commands his soldiers. To kill not just a man but the very memory of his existence from the fabric of space-time. Yet this power breeds arrogance. It fosters a reliance on machines that can fail on ancient secrets, that can be lost on a perfection that cannot comprehend the raw, illogical fury of a true believer, or the mutating insanity of the abyss. What of psychic might, the power of the mind? The ability to tear reality asunder with a thought to command legions, with a whisper to see the myriad futures and pluck the thread of destiny. This is the power of gods, a power that transcends the physical realm, turning bone and steel into irrelevant trifles. With it, one can conjure firestorms, enslave minds, and bargain with entities born of pure emotion. But this is the most dangerous power of all. For the Sea of Souls, the Empyrean is not an empty vessel. It is a raging ocean, and in its depths lurk predators of unimaginable hunger. To open one's mind is to open a door, and you do not know what will come crawling through. Every psyker is a potential gateway to damnation, their very strength a beacon for the architects of ruin. And there is the power of survival of adaptation, the power to not only endure the horrors of this galaxy, but to consume them and become stronger, a biological imperative given cosmic form, a power that does not build but devours. It does not invent, it evolves. It sees a fortress and engineers a beast to shatter its walls. It sees a blade and grows a carapace to break it. It is a power without malice, without honor, without thought. It is pure, unadulterated hunger, a process of cosmic digestion that seeks to render the entire galaxy down to its base biomass, a single unified organism forever seeking its next meal. It cannot be reasoned with, it cannot be intimidated, for it is not an empire. It is a force of nature. Finally, there is the most insidious power of all, the power of corruption, the power to turn a civilization's greatest strengths into its most crippling weaknesses, to twist faith into fanaticism, hope into madness, ambition into damnation, and love into obsession. It is a power that does not need to conquer worlds when it can conquer the souls of those who defend them. It offers everything you desire and in return takes everything you are. It is the enemy within the cancer in the heart of all thinking beings, a mirror that reflects the darkest parts of our own nature back at us, amplified into a symphony of eternal torment. Its victory is not a subjugated populace, but a galaxy screaming in a state of perpetual self-inflicted agony. So you see, the question itself is flawed. To ask who is the strongest is to ask if the storm is stronger than the mountain, or the plague stronger than the fire. They are merely different instruments of annihilation. Power in this galaxy is not about winning. There are no winners. There is only the struggle, the endless grinding attrition. Power is simply the ability to continue the fight for one more day, to postpone the inevitable darkness for one more bloody, desperate hour. Look then at our contenders. Gaze upon the blood-drenched stage. See the imperium of man, a billion worlds united in ignorance, and fear its armies, a tidal wave of humanity that washes against the shores of oblivion. See the endless green tide of the orcs, a race that lives for nothing but the joyous, brutal act of war itself, their laughter a promise of mindless destruction. Behold the silent legions of the Necrons waking from a slumber of 60 million years, their technology capable of extinguishing stars, their ambition to impose a chilling final order upon a chaotic universe. Witness the shadow that falls upon the stars, the chilling psychic silence that heralds the approach of the tyrannid hive, fleets a singular entity of infinite hunger for whom our entire galaxy is but a single meal on an endless journey. See the last flickering embers of the Aeldery, a dying race of unsurpassed grace and power, fighting a desperate, elegant war against their own extinction. And feel it in the back of your mind, in the darkest corners of your soul, the seductive whisper of chaos. The demonic legions, the traitorous space marines, the four great gods who feast upon the very emotions that define us. These are the players in the final terrible game. Each a titan, each a monster, each convinced of its own righteousness, its own destiny. They are all powerful, but the truth of their rule, the final answer to that flawed, naive question, is far more terrifying than a single name. It is a revelation that lies at the very heart of this age of endless war, and we shall dissect them all piece by bloody piece. We begin our dissection with the most familiar of the galaxy's titans, the sprawling, self-devouring star empire that claims dominion over humanity, the Imperium of Man. On paper, its power seems absolute, its scale a refutation of all opposition. 1,000,000 worlds bound together by fear and faith. 1,000,000,000,000 souls, each a potential soldier, each a cog in a war machine so vast it beggars the imagination. The Imperium's primary claim to strength, its first and last line of defense, is humanity itself. Behold the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. Do not think of them as an army. An army is a finite thing, a collection of trained soldiers. The Guard is a force of nature. It is a human river, a tidal wave of flesh and faith hurled against the enemy with callous disregard. When a world is threatened, the Departamento Munitorum does not calculate the number of soldiers needed for victory. It calculates the tonnage of bodies required to clog the enemy's guns, to drown their trenches, to exhaust their ammunition. Each guardsman is a number in a fatal equation, a single drop of water in an ocean of blood. They are born on worlds of smog-choked industry, raised in squalor, and handed a lasgun, whose power pack is worth more than their life. They are told they are the saviors of humanity, as they are loaded onto transport ships with casualty expectancies exceeding 90%. Their courage is real. Their faith is undeniable. But their strength, the strength of the Militarum, lies not in the valor of a single soldier, but in the cold, hard fact that there are always more to take his place. The Imperial Navy operates on the same principle. Its vessels are leviathans of adamantium and faith cathedrals of war bristling with macro cannons and lance batteries, but their true power is their ubiquity. For every glorious battleship there are 1,000 lumbering cruisers and fragile escorts, each crewed by generations of void-born who will live and die within its metallic shell. The Imperium can lose a fleet that would be the pride of a lesser empire and replace it within a decade. It can sacrifice 1 billion men to take a single fortress and consider it a victory. This is the power of the hammer, a weapon of immense brute force swung without precision that crushes both its target and its own wielder's hand. But this colossal hammer is not without its sharpened tip. Look now to the angels of death, the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines. They are the Emperor's wrath made manifest, each one a transhuman demigod, a walking legend clad in ceramite. In the hands of a single Space Marine, a bolter is not a gun. It is an instrument of holy retribution. In his heart there is no fear, only the cold certainty of purpose. They are everything the common guardsman is not: rare, powerful, and precious. They are the scalpel to the guard's sledgehammer deployed where the fighting is thickest to turn the tide of a battle that 1 million lesser men could not win. They are magnificent. They are a testament to what humanity can achieve, but they are a lie. A beautiful, inspiring, and utterly damning lie, for there are only 1,000 chapters, a mere 1,000,000 of these warriors in a galaxy that teems with uncountable foes. They cannot be everywhere. They cannot save every world. They are a finger in a dike that is cracking in 1,000 places. And the greatest irony of their existence is that their legend is built upon the bones of those they are sworn to protect. A Space Marine victory is a glorious thing sung about for centuries. But it is a victory that takes place on a field already fertilized by the corpses of the Imperial Guard, a victory made possible only by the sacrifice of millions. They are the Nungon Gyao, the Emperor's spear, but a spear is useless without a shield, and that shield is a wall of mortal, expendable human flesh. Herein lies the rotten core of the Imperium's power, the terrible price of its continued existence. It is an empire that is actively and enthusiastically eating itself alive. Its heart is the golden throne of terror, not a throne of command, but a baroque and horrifying life support machine, a prison of gilded agony. Upon it sits the decaying skeletal corpse of the Emperor, a psychic powerhouse kept in a state of living death for 10,000 years. His mind, a raging storm of psychic energy, powers the Astronomicon, the very light that allows interstellar travel, the beacon that holds his empire together. But this beacon is fueled by the daily sacrifice of 1,000 psychers, their souls burned out like fuses to keep the Emperor's light from fading. The Imperium is sustained by an act of mass murder repeated every single day. Its technological prowess is a sham, overseen by the Adeptus Mechanicus, a priesthood of cyborgs who worship machines they no longer understand. They have replaced innovation with dogma, science with ritual. To invent is heresy. To maintain the crumbling relics of a forgotten age is piety. And overseeing it all is the iron fist of the Inquisition, the secret police who hold the power of ultimate judgment. In their paranoia, they see heresy in every shadow. They will order an exterminatus, the complete annihilation of a world's population, to cleanse the taint of a single cultist. The Imperium slaughters more of its own citizens than any external foe. It is a regime built on terror, sustained by sacrifice, and trapped in a state of technological and spiritual decay. It is strong, yes. It is a giant. But it is a dying giant riddled with cancer, swinging its mighty hammer in a blind rage, knowing in its darkest heart that it is not fighting to win. It is fighting to not die today. And tomorrow it must begin the fight all over again. From the rotting grandeur of the Imperium, we now turn our gaze to a force that is its utter antithesis. A race that is not dying but thriving in the galactic war zone. A species for whom the grim darkness of the far future is not a hell but a paradise. They are the Orcs. And to understand their power, you must discard everything you know about strategy, logistics, and even the laws of physics. For the Orcs are not an empire. They are a disease, a biological plague of violence that infests the darkest corners of the galaxy. Their very biology is an act of war. An Orc is a brutish parody of life, a perfect fusion of animal and fungus engineered for no purpose other than conflict. They are clad in slabs of green muscle, impossibly resilient, capable of surviving wounds that would kill any other creature 10 times over. And should they fall, their death is merely a prelude to more war. From their corpse, spores are released into the winds, seeding the very ground with the promise of a new generation. Kill an Orc, and you plant a garden of future Orcs. Burn a world to cinders to stop them, and you find their spores have clung to the hulls of your own starships, ready to begin the cycle anew on a fresh, unsuspecting world. They require no complex supply lines, for their battlefield is their larder. They feel no fear, only the escalating excitement of a good fight. They need no indoctrination to convince them to die for a cause, because the act of fighting is their cause. It is their art, their religion, and their reason for being. An Orc does not fight to live. It lives to fight. This simple, unshakable truth makes them one of the most successful life forms in the galaxy. They are a self-replicating, self-sustaining ecosystem of pure violence, but their physical resilience is not their most potent weapon. The true terrifying power of the Orcs is born from their collective primitive consciousness. It is a psychic energy, a force of nature known only as the We. It is the gestalt will of billions of Orcs, a raw primal belief that is so powerful it actively rewrites the laws of reality around them. In the hands of an Imperial Guardsman, a rusted pipe is a desperate club. In the hands of an Orc, that same rusted pipe is a chopper that can somehow parry a power sword. A pile of scrap metal bolted together and painted yellow will explode with greater force simply because every Orc in the vicinity knows that yellow arns is more splody. Their guns, ramshackle contraptions that should jam or misfire on every shot, work perfectly because the Orc firing it believes they will. Their vehicles, crude and belching smoke, can outpace sleek Eldar skimmers if they are painted red, because red uns go faster. This is not magic as the scholars understand it. It is the brute force application of belief. It is the universe itself surrendering to the idiotic, unwavering conviction of the green tide. The power of the War is exponential. A single Orc is a dangerous thug. A mob of Orcs is a localized reality distortion. A planet-wide War is a force that can defy physics, a green hurricane of impossible violence and junk pile technology that functions on sheer concentrated belief. This leads us to the most dreadful possibility concerning the orc race. They are for now a scattered threat. 1,000 tribes on 1,000 worlds fighting each other as often as they fight their neighbors. They are a galactic brushfire, dangerous but contained. But what if they were to become an inferno history holds a dark precedent? An age when a war boss known only as the Beast rose to prominence. A creature of monstrous size and terrifying cunning, he united a vast swathe of the orc race, forging an empire that battered the Imperium to the very brink of annihilation. He was an anomaly, an orc who possessed not just strength, but vision. Now imagine that potential unleashed on a galactic scale. Imagine if by some cruel twist of fate, a new beast were to arise. A war boss capable of uniting every clan, every tribe, from the smallest feral orc to the mightiest war boss. The war they would generate would be a psychic tsunami, a green tide of such magnitude it would not just wash against the shores of the established empires, but sweep them away entirely. It would be a crusade of trillions upon trillions of warriors, each a self-sustaining engine of war, their impossible technology functioning at peak efficiency, their numbers so great they would blot out the very stars. They would not need strategy. They would not need subtlety. They would simply be the biggest, meanest, and most numerous force in the galaxy, and in the orc mindset. That is the only thing that has ever mattered. They are the ultimate potential threat, a ticking time bomb of violence at the heart of the galaxy, waiting only for a single unifying hand to detonate it. We now turn from the blunt instrument of the orc and the crumbling bastion of humanity to a power of a different nature entirely. A power of grace, of speed, and of immeasurable sorrow. We speak of the Eldari, a race that once ruled the stars as gods, and now haunts the galaxy as ghosts. To measure their strength is to measure the light of a dying star. It is still brilliant, still capable of burning away the darkness, but it is guttering, fading, and knows its own end is near. Their power is a legacy of a past so glorious that the achievements of younger races are but the scribblings of children in the dust. The technology of the Eldari is not mere machinery. It is art psychically resonant and seamlessly fused with the natural world. They do not forge their cities and ships from dead metal. They sing them into existence from wraithbone, a psychoplastic substance that is stronger than adamantium, yet lighter than air, capable of healing itself as if it were living flesh. Their warriors wield shuriken catapults that fire silent storms of monomolecular discs, slicing through armor, flesh, and bone with contemptuous ease. Their vehicles are not crude, ground-pounding contraptions. They are elegant skimmers that float upon the battlefield, dancing a lethal ballet that their foes can barely track, let alone counter. And their mastery of travel is absolute. While humanity risks its soul in the turbulent tides of the warp, the Eldari stride through the webway, a labyrinthine dimension that lies between reality and the immaterium. Through its hidden tunnels, they can traverse the galaxy in a heartbeat, striking without warning and vanishing before a response can be mustered. On a purely technological and tactical level, they are without peer. A single Eldari warrior is the equal of 10 human soldiers. A single Eldari starship could outmaneuver and destroy an entire Imperial squadron. In theory, they possess the means to reclaim their lost dominion, but their power is chained by a curse of their own making. For every Eldari, the universe is a haunted house, and the monster that stalks its halls is a god they themselves created. At the zenith of their power, the ancient Eldari Empire collapsed into decadence. Their sensitivities, so much more acute than any other races, led them down paths of excess that curdled into a psychic apocalypse. The collective weight of their depravity tore a hole in the fabric of reality, and from this wound a new god of chaos was born, Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, the Devourer of Souls. In that single horrifying moment, the Eldari Empire was annihilated, and the soul of every Eldari living or dead was forfeit. Now she who thirsts has an eternal claim on their spirits. Upon death, an Aeldari's soul is not allowed to dissipate peacefully, but is instead dragged into the warp to be consumed by their great enemy, to suffer an eternity of exquisite torment. This single existential horror defines them. It is the lens through which they view all of existence. They are no longer a proud empire. They are a race of refugees fleeing an unstoppable predator. Their every action is tempered by a crippling caution. Their dwindling numbers are not merely a strategic disadvantage. They are a countdown to extinction. Every loss is a permanent one, a soul fed to the beast that they spawned. They possess the power of gods, but are forced to act like mice, lest the shadow of the cat fall upon them. This curse has shattered their people, breaking them into desperate factions, each clinging to a different strategy for survival. There are the Asuriani who fled the cataclysm on vast world ships called craft worlds. They are ascetics, denying themselves all extremes of emotion by walking the rigid path, a system of absolute self-control that turns a citizen into a warrior, an artist or a seer, but never allows them to be all three. Their strength is in their Farseer's psychers of incredible power, who can gaze into the skeins of fate, guiding their people along the safest possible course. They fight with the precise, disciplined grace of their aspect warriors, but they are paralyzed by their own foresight, often sacrificing whole worlds of lesser beings to save a handful of Aeldari lives. Then there are the Drukhari, their dark kin who reside in the webway city of Komarach. They saw the draining thirst of Slaanesh and chose a different path. Rather than denying their nature, they embraced its souls by feasting on the pain and agony of others. They are pirates, slavers, and artists of torture. Their power is in their speed and their capacity for cruelty, raiding real space for victims to drag back to their dark city. They are strong, but it is the strength of a parasite forever dependent on the suffering of others to delay their own damnation. And recently a new hope has flickered into being the Inari. They are a sect who believe the key to survival is not to flee death, but to embrace it. They worship Inead, the nascent Aeldari god of the dead, and through its power they can reclaim the souls of their fallen from Slaanesh's grasp. This gives them a strength and a purpose not seen in millennia, but their path is a radical one feared by many of their own kind. The Aeldari are a fractured mirror of their former glory, each shard reflecting a different aspect of their power, but none possessing the whole. They are the tragic heroes of the galaxy, armed with the weapons of the gods, but fighting a losing war against their own soul. In this gallery of ancient evils, dying empires, and biological monstrosities, we now observe a startling anomaly, a flicker of light in the oppressive darkness, a new power, young and ambitious, whose very existence is an act of defiance against the galaxy's established order of misery. This is the Toe Empire, a civilization so young, its first encounter with humanity was a mere few millennia ago, a blink of an eye in the grand, bloody history of the galaxy. Their power is not derived from ancient legacy psychic might or sheer numbers. It is derived from a concept that is utterly alien to this grim future progress. At the heart of the Toe Empire is a philosophy, a unifying principle known as the Tova, the greater good. In a universe defined by xenophobia and hatred, the Toe preach unity and collective benefit. They expand not solely through conquest, but through absorption. They offer client races a place within their society, promising protection, technological advancement, and a shared purpose in exchange for loyalty. This is a form of power almost unheard of in the 41st millennium, the power of diplomacy and ideology. They have forged a coalition of different species, all working in concert under the guidance of the enigmatic ethereal caste. Of course, this is not a gentle utopian dream. The offer to join the greater good is often an ultimatum delivered from the barrel of a pulse rifle. The choice is simple: accept the truth of the Taova and join the Empire, or be eradicated as an obstacle to progress. Yet compared to the Imperium's genocidal purges or the Drukhari's slave raids, this ruthless pragmatism is almost a form of mercy. Their strength lies in this unity of purpose, a stark contrast to the internal strife and civil wars that plague every other major power. This philosophical unity is backed by a military that is a marvel of rapid technological evolution. While the Imperium worships ancient decaying machines, the Tau innovate. Their armies are built around the synergy of their hunter cadres, a doctrine of war known as the Kauyon, and Montka, the patient hunter and the killing blow. At the forefront of their military are the fire-cast warriors equipped with pulse rifles that possess a range and stopping power far superior to the standard lasguns of the Imperial Guard. But the iconic symbol of Tau might is the battlesuit. From the sleek X-Fiat Crisis battlesuit, a versatile weapons platform capable of deep-striking enemy lines, to the colossal Riptide and Storm Surge walking platforms of overwhelming firepower, these machines represent the pinnacle of modern military hardware. They are piloted by skilled warriors who see warfare not as a berserker rage or a holy crusade, but as a complex tactical problem to be solved with the precise application of overwhelming force. The Tau do not seek glorious melee. They see it as a failure of planning. Their way of war is to identify the enemy target, their weaknesses from a safe distance, and annihilate them in a coordinated storm of plasma railgun slugs and smart missiles. It is a clean, efficient, and devastatingly effective expression of technological superiority. Yet for all their progress and power, the Tau Empire is perhaps the most fragile of all the galaxy's would-be rulers. Their strength is a candle flame, bright but small, in a gallery of looming ancient shadows. Their dominion is a tiny pocket of illuminated space on the eastern fringe of the galaxy, an insignificant stellar cluster compared to the million worlds of the Imperium. Their greatest weakness is their inability to truly master the stars. Lacking the navigators of humanity, or the webway of the Aeldari, their interstellar travel is slow and perilous. Their fleets must make a series of short, dangerous dives into the warp, skimming its surface, a process that is vastly slower and less reliable than that of their rivals. This severely limits their strategic reach, making their small empire a collection of isolated outposts, difficult to reinforce and vulnerable to a determined galaxy-spanning foe. But their most profound weakness is not technological, it is philosophical. They are a race of optimists, of rational thinkers in a fundamentally irrational universe. They do not truly comprehend the forces they are dealing with. They see the demonic incursions of chaos not as a metaphysical assault on reality itself, but as encounters with a particularly hostile and poorly understood Xenos species. They view the Tyranid hive mind not as a cosmic horror that will devour them without a thought, but as a unique biological challenge to be analyzed and overcome. Their belief in progress and reason, the very engine of their success, is a blindness that prevents them from seeing the true, soul-destroying nature of the abyss. They are a lone, logical flame in a hurricane of madness, and they have yet to realize that the wind is rising. We now leave behind the squabbles of corporeal empires, their struggles for territory and ideology seeming almost petty in the face of what comes next. We move from the realm of the understandable of soldiers and machines into the domain of cosmic horror. We are now speaking of powers that do not seek to rule the galaxy, but to fundamentally unmake it. Our first subject in this terrifying new chapter is not a kingdom, a race, or a faction. It is a biological event, a nomadic, all-consuming catastrophe that has drifted from the silent, starless void between galaxies. It is known by many names: the Great Devourer, the Shadow in the Warp, the Star Locust. It is the Tyranids. The arrival of the Tyranids is not announced by a declaration of war or the appearance of a fleet on a view screen. It is heralded by a profound and unnatural silence. A psychic stillness falls over a region of space, a suffocating void known as the Shadow in the Warp. The psychic choir of the Astronomicon is snuffed out, leaving navigators blind and starships lost. Astropaths claw at their eyes, their minds shattered by a pressure so immense it feels like a mountain pressing down on their soul. The vibrant, chaotic energy of the warp is becalmed, and even the demons fall silent in the face of this monolithic alien consciousness. This is the first sign of psychic emptiness that is not the absence of life but the presence of one singular overwhelming mind. Then the true infection begins, often years before the fleet arrives. Genestealer cults hidden in the dark underhives and forgotten asteroid mines of imperial worlds begin their final preparations. For generations they have spread their genetic taint, masquerading as popular uprisings or benign religious movements. They are the patient vanguard, a fifth column that rises up at the appointed hour to sabotage defenses, assassinate leaders, and spread terror, preparing the world for its own consumption. Only when the planet is in chaos, its communications severed and its defenders divided, does the devourer itself descend. The sky darkens not with clouds, but with a living storm of chitin and flesh. Hive ships, monstrous bioconstructs the size of continents, blot out the sun. It is an invasion without negotiation, without surrender. It is the methodical, pitiless process of a predator beginning its meal. The power of the Tyranids is absolute biological supremacy. They have no technology, for they have transcended the need for it. Their very being is perfected living technology. Their warrior forms are not born. They are spawned in the fleshy wombs of their hive ships, each a bespoke weapon designed for a specific purpose. Endless swarms of termagants advance behind a living wall of bullets, their flesh-borer guns firing ravenous beetles that eat their way through their victims. Hormagaunts, scythe-limbed killing machines bound across the battlefield with terrifying speed, their only instinct to dismember and kill. Towering carnifexes, living battering rams of muscle and armored plating, smash through fortress walls with impunity. Biovores, bloated artillery beasts, launch spore mines that detonate in clouds of corrosive acid and living shrapnel. And commanding them all are the synaptic creatures, the hive tyrants, and the warriors' extensions of the hive mind's will, whose psychic commands are the only thing that matters. This army is a seamless, perfectly efficient ecosystem of slaughter. But its most terrifying weapon is its ability to adapt. The hive mind is the ultimate pragmatist. It learns from every engagement by consuming its failures and its foes. Did heavy bolters decimate its initial swarms, the next wave will be birthed with denser carapaces, their chitinous plates angled to better deflect the mass-reactive shells. Did a hero of the Imperium slay one of its mightiest beasts, the Tyranids will harvest his genetic material, and the hive mind will spawn a lictor with his memories of combat, a hunter that knows his every feint and parry. They do not just defeat their enemies, they absorb them, stealing their biological strengths and adding them to their own arsenal. They are a force of perpetual predatory evolution, and every life form they encounter is simply a new set of genes to be catalogued and exploited. This brings us to the most chilling truth of all, a truth that reframes the entire galactic conflict. The hive fleets that have ravaged the galaxy, the legendary swarms of Behemoth Kraken and Leviathan, which have cost the Imperium and other races trillions of lives to halt, are not the main invasion force. They are merely scouts. They are exploratory tendrils, the barest vanguard of a force so large it defies rational comprehension. The main body of the Tyranid race drifts in the absolute zero of the intergalactic void, a superorganism of such colossal scale that the fleets we have witnessed are less than a splinter from its fingernail. They have traveled for untold eons, drawn to our galaxy by the psychic light of the Astronomicon, a dinner bell rung across the cosmic ocean. They are not here to conquer. Conquest implies a desire to rule what is taken. They are not here to enslave. Slaves are a resource to be exploited. The Tyranids' purpose is far simpler and far more final. They have come to eat. They will strip every world of every gram of life, from the mightiest warrior to the humblest microbe. They will drink the seas, process the atmosphere, and absorb all biomass into their great collective whole. They will leave behind them a chain of sterile, lifeless rocks, a galactic boneyard before the great devourer moves on in silence, seeking the next feast in the next galaxy. All the wars, the struggles for power, the rise and fall of empires, all of it is nothing more than the furious activity of bacteria on a petri dish, unaware that the scientist is about to sterilize the plate. The Tyranids are the ultimate context-destroying power. They are the hunger from outside, and their victory would not be a new dark age, but a final all-encompassing silence. If the Tyranids represent a horror from without, a force of nature utterly alien to our galaxy, we now turn to a horror from within, a power that has been sleeping beneath our feet for 60 million years, a dominion of silent, soulless machines whose claim to this galaxy predates not only the Imperium, but the Aeldari, and even the very birth of the Chaos Gods themselves. To speak of the Necrons is to speak of time on a scale that renders mortal history meaningless. They are the echoes of a war that shaped the stars, and they are waking up. Their story begins in an era of myth, in a time when the galaxy was young. They were the Necron tier, a frail, short-lived race, consumed by a morbid obsession with their own mortality, forever raging against the cruel joke of their brief lifespans. Their bitterness led them to make a terrible bargain. They found and unleashed the Satan godlike beings of pure energy, feeding them with the radiation of stars in exchange for power. This alliance led to the first and greatest of all conflicts, the War in Heaven. A war fought against the creators of the galaxy, the godlike Old Ones. It was a conflict of such magnitude that the very laws of physics were bent and broken. Planets were not conquered, they were unmade. Stars were not blockaded, they were extinguished. It was in this crucible of cosmic warfare that the Necron tier made their final damning sacrifice. Guided by their leader Zarek, the last of the Silent Kings, they submitted their people to the process of biotransference. Their weak, cancerous flesh was burned away in great bioforges, and their consciousnesses were transferred into bodies of immortal living metal. They became the Necrons, an army of deathless machines, and with their newfound power, they not only shattered the empire of the Old Ones, but also turned upon their own Satan masters, breaking them into shards and imprisoning them as eternal weapons. After their victory surveying a galaxy ravaged by their war, they retreated into their great tomb worlds to sleep, waiting for the fires to die down and the galaxy to become ripe for the reseeding of their silent cold empire. That was 60 million years ago. Now their alarm clocks are ringing. The power of the Necrons is the absolute, unquestioned mastery of the material universe. Where others rely on the fickle energies of the warp or the chaotic processes of evolution, the Necrons command the fundamental principles of reality itself. Their warriors are forged from necrodermis, a living metal that flows like liquid to repair any damage, allowing a fallen Necron warrior to reassemble itself from catastrophic wounds and rise again, its cold green eyes burning with silent purpose. Their standard infantry weapons are not crude slug throwers or energy projectors. They are Gauss flayers, which project a beam that methodically strips a target's atoms away layer by layer. An armored tank is not pierced by a Gauss weapon. It is unwritten from existence. Their mastery extends to dimensions and causality. They can phase through solid matter, their armies marching through fortress walls as if they were mist. Their tomb ships can rip through space-time, appearing in the heart of an enemy fleet without a whisper of warning. But these are mere trinkets compared to their grandest works, the terrible legacy of the War in Heaven. They built the Tesseract Labyrinth's pocket dimensions that serve as inescapable prisons for the shards of the star gods they betrayed, turning beings that once devoured suns into living power sources. They constructed planet-sized mobile fortresses, the world engines, armed with arrays of weapons capable of causing supernovae. They have access to the celestial orrery, a perfect functioning replica of the entire galaxy that allows them to trigger cosmic events at will, destroying a solar system thousands of light years away with the flick of a switch. This is not technology as the younger races understand it. This is applied godhood. For millions of years, this immense power has been dormant, a sleeping giant afflicted with the madness of eternity. The waking tomb worlds were isolated, their overlords often driven insane by the long sleep, fractured into squabbling, eccentric dynasties with no unified purpose. But that age of division is ending. From the silent void beyond the galactic rim, Sarek the Silent King has returned. Having spent millennia in self-imposed exile, he has witnessed the true horror that is the tyrannid hive mind, a force he recognizes as the ultimate threat to the Necron goal of an ordered silent galaxy. He has returned with a singular, terrifying purpose to awaken every last tomb world and unite the entire Necron race under his absolute authority by persuasion, if possible, by force, if necessary. The age of slumbering, insane kings is over. An age of unified, methodical conquest is beginning. The Silent King's ambition is twofold. First, he will purge the galaxy of the infestation of organic life, re-establishing the dominion that is his by right. But his final secret goal is a tragic one, to find a way to reverse the biotransference, to cast off their cold metal shells and reclaim the fragile, soulful flesh they sacrificed so long ago. This purpose, this grand design, transforms the Necrons from a series of disparate, ancient evils into the most potent, resurgent power in the galaxy. A fully awakened and unified Necron empire, wielding the physics-defying weaponry of the war in heaven and led by the very being who commanded them at their zenith, would be a force of cold, logical, and absolute power. They do not seek to corrupt or consume. They seek to impose a perfect, final, and eternal silence, the silence of the tomb. We have witnessed the hunger that comes from the void and the silent menace that rises from the tomb. Both are external threats, horrors that can be faced on a battlefield that can be fought with guns and blades. But we now turn our attention to a power of an entirely different magnitude. A foe that cannot be met on any battlefield, because its battlefield is the soul itself. It is not an army. It is not an empire. It is a fundamental sentient law of the universe, a psychic cancer that has metastasized in the heart of reality. It is the primordial annihilator. It is chaos. To comprehend this power, you must first understand the nature of the immaterium, the realm that the ignorant call the warp. It is a dimension parallel to our own, a turbulent sea of raw psychic energy. It is not empty. This sea has currents, tides, and storms, and these are formed by the emotions and thoughts of every sentient being in the material galaxy. Every flicker of hope, every surge of rage, every pang of despair, every cry of passion echoes in the warp, not as a fleeting sound, but as a ripple of energy. For untold eons, these ripples were chaotic and dispersed. But as civilizations grew, as trillions upon trillions of souls lived and died, feeling and fearing these psychic energies began to coalesce. Currents of rage and hatred began to flow together. Pools of ambition and hope began to deepen. Miasmas of despair and entropy began to thicken. Eventually, these vast, congealed masses of emotion gained a terrible, rudimentary consciousness. They became gods. This is the ultimate horrifying truth of chaos. It is not an alien force that has invaded our reality. It is the reflection of our own inner lives cast back at us in a monstrous predatory form. It is the hell that we built for ourselves and continue to feed with every beat of our hearts. The rage of the orc, the fear of the human, the arrogance of the Eldari, all of it is sustenance for the great enemy. It is a foe that cannot be starved, for as long as sentient life exists to feel the gods of chaos will feast. This singular, terrifying force wears 4 main faces, 4 great masks that personify its core aspects. There is Khorne, the Lord of Skulls. He is the embodiment of rage, of violence, of martial pride, and mindless slaughter. He sits upon a throne of skulls atop a mountain of the slain, fueled by every act of violence from a back alley stabbing to a planetary extermination. He cares not from whence the blood flows, only that it flows. He is the god of the warrior, the berserker, and the killer. Then there is Tzeentch, the changer of ways, the architect of fate. He is the manifestation of ambition, of hope, of the thirst for knowledge, and the desire for change. Every plot, every scheme, every desperate prayer for a better future empowers him. He is the master of sorcery and manipulation. His plans are webs of such complexity that they span millennia, and his greatest joy is to watch the plans of others crumble to dust. There is Nurgle the Plague Father, the Lord of Decay. He is the personification of despair, of mortality, and of the universe's inevitable slide into entropy and death. Yet paradoxically, he is also a god of life, and resilience for life springs from decay. He offers freedom from pain and fear, brewing horrific plagues in his great cauldron as gifts for the mortal races loving his creations with a disgusting paternal affection. And finally there is Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, the Dark Prince. The youngest of the gods, birthed by the fall of the Aeldari, Slaanesh is the embodiment of excess of passion, of the quest for perfection in all things. Slaanesh is the artist's obsession, the warrior's pride, the lover's devotion, all taken to their most extreme, self-destructive, and ultimately agonizing conclusions. These are not merely 4 alien deities, they are the 4 dark corners of the mortal soul given form and an insatiable hunger. This is what makes chaos the most insidious power in the galaxy. Its armies of gibbering demons and its legions of corrupted chaos space marines are terrifying, yes, but they are not its primary weapon. The greatest weapon of chaos is betrayal. Its true power lies in its ability to corrupt, to turn a civilization's greatest strengths into its most devastating liabilities. Chaos does not need to batter down the gates of the Imperial Palace. It need only find a single guardsman on the wall, a man who fears death, who resents his commander, who dreams of a better life, and whisper in his ear. It will offer him strength. It will offer him hope. It will offer him immortality. And in the end, he will open the gates himself. The history of the galaxy is littered with the corpses of heroes who thought they could resist this temptation. The greatest and most terrible example is the Horus Heresy. The Emperor of Mankind stood at the cusp of unifying the entire galaxy. His ultimate weapon was his 20 Primarchs and their Space Marine legions. Chaos did not meet this great crusade with a rival fleet from another galaxy. It took Horus Lupercal, the Emperor's most trusted son, the war master of his armies, and it poisoned his soul with whispers of pride, resentment, and ambition. It turned the Imperium's greatest hero into its arch-traitor. It turned half of the legions, the saviors of humanity, into the instruments of its damnation. This is the unchanging strategy of chaos. It does not seek to outfight its enemies. It seeks to make them fight themselves. It turns brother against brother, faith into fanaticism, order into tyranny. It is the enemy that waits within every heart, the promise that power can be had, without price, the lie that you can control the fire that you summon. Its ultimate victory is not a galaxy of conquered worlds, but a galaxy that has enthusiastically and willingly torn itself to pieces. To truly grasp the scale of chaos's power, we must look past the armies and the traitors to the architects of ruin themselves. We must gaze into the heart of the storm and study the 4 great consciousnesses that rule the Empyrean. For they are not merely powerful beings who command legions. They are the living, thinking manifestations of concepts. Their power is absolute because it is woven into the very fabric of sentient thought. To fight them is to fight your own nature, a war that has already been lost the moment it began. First, let us speak of the most straightforward and perhaps the most honest of the four Khorne, the blood god, the Lord of Skulls. Khorne is the embodiment of violence in its purest, most unadulterated form. He is the raging heart of every battle, the glorious fury in a warrior's breast, the brutal satisfaction of a perfectly executed killing blow. His power is born from every single act of rage and murder in the galaxy. The desperate guardsman bayoneting a Xenos foe, the Orc boy chopping down a rival, the Eldari autarch executing a flawless strike, even the Inquisitor ordering an exterminatus, all of them, knowingly or not, pay tribute to the Lord of Battle. This is the terrible simplicity of his strength. He does not care from whence the blood flows. The blood of heroes is as sweet to him as the blood of villains. The noble sacrifice and the cowardly murder are equal offerings at his brass throne. In a galaxy consumed by perpetual total war, his power is essentially infinite. His followers ask for but one thing, strength in battle, and he grants it willingly, asking only for a tribute in return: blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. He despises sorcery and trickery, viewing them as the tools of cowards. His power is direct, brutal, and undeniable. As long as a single being in the galaxy raises a hand in anger, Khorne will endure. Next, we unravel the infinitely complex webs of Tzeentch, the architect of fate, the changer of ways. If Khorne is the body of war, Tzeentch is its mind. He is the living embodiment of change, of evolution, of ambition, and most insidiously of hope. Every being that has ever dreamed of a better tomorrow, every politician who has ever schemed for greater power, every scientist who has pursued forbidden knowledge, every downtrodden soul who has prayed for deliverance, they have all in their own way fed the great conspirator. His power is the power of manipulation. He is the ultimate puppet master playing a great game against his divine brothers, and all of reality using mortals and demons as his pawns. A hero rises to defeat a tyrant, only to become a greater tyrant in his place. A civilization discovers a new technology to bring it prosperity, only for that technology to lead to its doom. These are the victories of Tzeentch. He offers his followers knowledge and power over their own destinies, but it is all a lie. They are merely threads in his grand, ever-changing tapestry, and their struggles only serve to weave his pattern. To fight against your fate is to worship him. To hope for a different future is to give him strength. His power lies in this ultimate paradox, in a universe of suffering, the desire to escape, that suffering is the very thing that fuels one of its greatest architects. From the madness of infinite possibility, we descend into the certainty of decay, with Nurgle the Plague Father, the grandfather of pestilence. Nurgle is the embodiment of the universe's inevitable entropy. He is the god of disease, of decay, of death, and of the despair that comes with the knowledge that all things must end. Every new virus, every festering wound, every world that succumbs to plague empowers him. The fear of mortality, the terror of infirmity, these are the prayers that echo in his garden. But Nurgle's power is uniquely terrifying because it is a power of paradoxical love and acceptance. To those who suffer, to those on the brink of death, he offers a terrible gift. He offers an end to pain. He offers resilience. By accepting his plagues, his followers become bloated, rotting, but shockingly durable beings immune to the agonies of the flesh, joyous in their own corruption. They become part of his great extended family. He is the grandfather who loves all life and shows that love by sharing his putrid creations. His power comes from the absolute certainty of decay. Empires will fall, bodies will rot, hope will turn to despair. All things in the end come to Nurgle. His strength is the strength of a glacier, slow, inevitable, and utterly unstoppable. He is the god of the final stinking breath that all life must one day take. Finally, we hear the siren call of Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, the Lord of Excess. The youngest and most seductive of the Chaos gods, Slaanesh, was born from the collective psyche of the ancient Aeldari at the height of their decadent empire. Slaanesh is the manifestation of all passion, all desire, and the quest for perfection taken to its absolute extreme. This is not merely the pursuit of carnal pleasure. It is the obsession of the artist to create the perfect masterpiece, the drive of the duelist to achieve the single perfect strike, the ambition of the commander to orchestrate the flawless victory. Slaanesh is the patron of the perfectionist. The power of the Dark Prince is the power of temptation. He promises the fulfillment of every desire, the experience of every sensation, the attainment of ultimate perfection. The path to his worship is paved with the best of intentions. But the promise is a trap. The perfect sensation once experienced becomes mundane. The perfect creation once completed is no longer satisfying. The follower is driven to seek ever greater extremes, ever more bizarre and depraved acts to achieve the same fleeting thrill. It is a spiral of obsession that leads only to a state of exquisite eternal agony, where pleasure and pain become indistinguishable. Slaanesh's power is to take the very finest qualities of a sentient being, its creativity, its passion, its drive to excel, and use those virtues as the instruments of its ultimate damnation. Having gazed into the abyss of chaos, we must now turn to the one light that holds that abyss at bay. A light born not of hope or faith, but of sheer indomitable will. We speak of a being who is both a man and a nascent god, a savior and a tyrant, a living mind trapped within a dying corpse. We speak of the master of mankind, the emperor of the Imperium, a power whose very nature is a paradox of agony and endurance. He is a king who cannot rule, a father who cannot speak, and a guardian whose only action is to suffer. His throne is not a seat of command, but a gilded prison, a baroque and horrifying engine of life support and psychic amplification. For 10,000 years the Emperor has sat upon the golden throne of terror, his body little more than a skeleton, his life sustained by arcane machinery that requires the daily sacrifice of 1,000 psychic souls to maintain. Yet from this state of living death, his mind projects a power of unimaginable scale, a power that performs two functions so vital that without them the Imperium would shatter and fall in a single day. First, his consciousness is the blazing star at the heart of the Astronomicon. It is a psychic beacon, a lighthouse of pure mental energy that shines across the galaxy, cutting through the darkness of the warp. It is this light, and this light alone, that allows the navigators to steer their vessels through the treacherous, insane tides of the immaterium. Without it, interstellar travel would cease. Every world would be isolated, every army stranded, every human soul cut off in an uncaring darkness, left to be devoured by the horrors that lurk in the void. He is the singular linchpin holding the million worlds of his empire together. Second, and just as critical, his psychic might forms an impenetrable shield around terror itself. He is a psychic dam holding back the full, undiluted power of the Chaos gods, who seek endlessly to breach the veil and turn the throne world into a new garden of damnation. Day and night for 10 millennia, he has fought a silent, eternal war on the psychic plane, his will the only barrier against a tide of demonic legions that would otherwise drown humanity's cradle. His is not a power of conquest anymore, but one of absolute, unending, and agonizing defense. What is the scale of this power? Is it merely the might of the galaxy's greatest psyker? No, it is far more. In the age of the Great Crusade, when he walked among men, his power was legendary. He was a warrior who could strike down the most powerful of foes, a scientist of unparalleled genius, and a psyker who could calm warp storms with a gesture. But now enthroned and empowered by 10 millennia of worship, his psychic presence is something else entirely. He is a genuine contender in the great game, a power on the level of the Chaos Gods themselves. To the ruinous powers, he is the anathema. While they are diffuse, vast entities born of the roiling emotions of countless species, he is a singular focused will of white-hot psychic energy. He is the embodiment of order, of control of humanity's furious desire to impose its design upon a chaotic universe. In the great ocean of the warp, he is not a swimmer, but a volcanic island, a bastion of reality against which the tides of chaos break in vain. He is the one being they truly fear, a psychic constant that they cannot corrupt, a force of pure purpose that stands in direct opposition to their very nature. The silent war he wages is not just for terror, but for the soul of the galaxy, a struggle between the concept of order and the concept of chaos. Herein lies the ultimate grimdark tragedy of the Emperor. His golden throne is also his golden prison. He is a conscious, aware mind trapped in a state of paralysis, forced to watch as the grand dream he had for humanity has been twisted into a monstrous parody. He fought to unite humanity under a banner of science, reason, and secular truth, what he called the imperial truth. He sought to free humanity from the shackles of superstition and the lies of religion. And what is his reward to be worshipped as a god? The Imperium he founded is now the Imperium he fought to prevent, a stagnant, xenophobic, and fanatically religious empire where faith has replaced reason and dogma has replaced science. The ecclesiarchy, the state church that proclaims his divinity, is the very antithesis of his original vision. And this raises the most terrifying question of all: what is this worship doing to him? We have seen that the emotions and beliefs of mortals can create gods in the warp. What happens when trillions of humans direct their fervent, fanatical belief towards a single psychic nexus for 10,000 years? Is the man, the great warlord and scientist, still in there? Or is the constant psychic pressure of worship slowly transforming him into a new god? A god emperor, not just in name, but in truth. A new power in the warp. A god of order, light, and authority, but also of tyranny, stagnation, and hatred. A being just as absolute and uncompromising as the Chaos Gods he despises. His power is the Imperium's salvation, the only thing that keeps it from being consumed. But his imprisonment and the ignorant worship it has spawned is the Imperium's damnation, the very thing that guarantees its endless suffering. He is the foundation of humanity's survival and the architect of its cage. Having now surveyed the titans of this blighted galaxy, from the corporeal empires of flesh and steel to the ancient conceptual horrors that transcend reality, we must begin the final terrible calculus. We must weigh these disparate forms of power against one another, not merely in the abstract, but in the cold, hard light of the galactic present. And here we discover the most crucial distinction, the vast yawning chasm that separates potential power from realized power. Let us first consider the sleeping giants, the two powers whose theoretical might dwarfs all others. Consider the Necrons. As we have discussed, a fully awakened Necron empire unified under the single iron will of the Silent King, Zarek would represent the absolute pinnacle of technological supremacy. If every tomb world were active, every dynasty obedient, every god-killing weapon of the war in heaven brought to bear, no force in this galaxy could stand against them. Not the endless legions of the Imperium, not the biological horror of the Tyranids, not even the demonic hordes of chaos. They would be a silver tide of methodical extermination, silencing the warp, erasing organic life, and imposing a final eternal order of cold, silent metal. This is their potential. But what is their reality? Their reality is a slow, fractured, and painful awakening. Millions of years of slumber have driven many of their overlords mad. Ancient rivalries between dynasties still burn, leading to civil wars that undermine the Silent King's unifying vision. Many of their greatest tomb worlds have been damaged, destroyed, or remain stubbornly dormant. Their power is immense, but it is a shattered weapon, and the process of reforging it is agonizingly slow. Their godhood is a future promise, not a present fact. The same calculus applies to the tyrannid hive mind. We have glimpsed the horrifying truth: the fleets that have torn bloody paths through the galaxy are but the vanguard, the scouting tendrils of a superorganism of incomprehensible size waiting in the intergalactic void. The full realized potential of the tyrannid race arriving in our galaxy would not be a war. It would be a biological apocalypse. It would be a force of nature so overwhelming that the combined might of all other factions would be as a sandcastle against a tsunami. They would scour the galaxy clean of all life, a final definitive victory of consumption. This is their potential. But their reality for now is one of protracted invasion. The vanguard fleets, while devastating, can be fought. They can, at immense cost, be stopped. The Imperium held back Hive Fleet Behemoth at Makraga. The Eldari have diverted swarms in the void. The Orcs have fought them to a standstill out of sheer joyous love of battle. The Great Devourer's full power is a shadow looming on the horizon, a death sentence that has been pronounced, but not yet carried out. Contrast these sleeping giants with the powers whose strength is fully and brutally realized in the galactic present, the Imperium of Man and the Orcs. Neither possesses the technological sophistication of the Necrons, nor the biological perfection of the Tyrannids. Both are messy, inefficient, and crude in comparison. Yet they are arguably the most dominant forces in the day-to-day reality of the 41st millennium. Their power is not potential, it is kinetic. It is the power of sheer presence. The Imperium's million worlds are already locked in total war. Its trillions of soldiers are already fighting and dying on a million fronts. Its strength is not in its quality, but in its sheer bloody-minded ubiquity and its staggering capacity to absorb losses that would annihilate any lesser empire. Likewise, the Orcs. Their potential to unify is a distant threat, but their reality is a constant festering and galaxy-wide plague of violence. For every major campaign waged by a civilized power, there are 1,000 smaller, unrecorded wars against Orc empires that rise and fall like the tide. Their power is realized every time a Warg is declared, every time a mob of boys charges into battle. They are not waiting to achieve their final form, they are already engaged in their life's purpose. The galactic war, then, is a race against time. Can the powers of the present, the battered survivors, hold the line through sheer attrition and sacrifice, or will the sleeping giants awaken to their terrible final potential before they are bled dry? Our comparison of potential and realized power reveals a galaxy locked in a brutal stalemate, a war of attrition between survivors and sleeping giants. But this analysis is incomplete, for it assumes all combatants are playing the same game. It assumes they share a common understanding of victory and defeat. This is a fatal error, for there is one power that does not play by these rules. One power for whom every battle, every death, and every tragedy is a victory, regardless of which side prevails. We must now analyze the ultimate asymmetrical nature of the war against chaos. Every conflict in this war-torn galaxy, from the smallest border skirmish to the greatest crusade, serves the ruinous powers. The other factions fight for survival, for dominion, for resources, for ideology. Chaos alone profits from the struggle itself. Consider the titanic war between the Imperium and the Tyrannid Hive fleets. On the material plane, it is a struggle between humanity's will to survive and the Great Devourer's endless hunger. But look at it through the lens of the warp. The trillions who die in glorious battle, and the billions more who are slaughtered in terror-filled last stands. Their spilled blood is a torrential offering to Khorne. The sheer planet-spanning scale of death, the inevitable plagues that sweep through refugee camps, the despair of the survivors watching their worlds be consumed. It is all a bountiful harvest for Nurgle. The intricate, desperate strategies of the Imperial Guard, the prophetic visions of the Elderly trying to manipulate the outcome, the very hope that a victory can be achieved against all odds, this is the sustenance of Tzeentch. Every single action taken in this war by both sides unwittingly fuels the very entities that wish to destroy them all. The galaxy is a grand arena, and while the gladiators bleed and die for the crowd's approval, the Chaos Gods are the patrons who own the Colosseum, growing rich on every drop of blood spilled. This leads to the fundamental, horrifying truth of this conflict: chaos wins even when it loses. The other powers define victory in physical, tangible terms. Planets held, armies destroyed, territory secured. Chaos has no such limitations. Its victory is not measured in real estate, but in emotion. A planet that falls to a demonic incursion is a clear victory, a new foothold for the powers of the warp. But consider a planet that is about to fall, forcing an Inquisitor to declare exterminatus. The Imperial Navy bombards the world from orbit, cracking its crust, burning its atmosphere, killing every living soul, loyalist and heretic alike, to deny it to the enemy. To the Imperium, this is a bitter, tragic necessity. To the Chaos Gods, it is a resounding triumph. The act generates a psychic shockwave of despair, of terror, of nihilism, a symphony of agony that is more nourishing than any conventional conquest. Chaos does not need to conquer a world when it can force its enemies to destroy it for them. Its goals are metaphysical. And by this metric, its greatest victories are not won by its demonic legions. They are won through the corruption of a single soul. The death of 1,000,000 guardsmen is a statistic, but the fall from grace of a single space marine hero, the damnation of a celebrated Inquisitor, the betrayal of a trusted war master, this is a victory of immeasurable worth. It is a testament to their core belief that all order is a lie, that all honor is a sham, and that every soul, no matter how pure, can be broken. They do not need to destroy their enemies when they can prove through the insidious power of corruption that their enemies were no different from them all along. In our analysis of the great powers, we have seen how the spiritual dimension, the great ocean of the warp, is dominated by the monolithic, corrupting presence of the Chaos Gods. They are the predators that swim in the depths of every mortal soul, and almost every race is vulnerable to their whispers. Almost. For there is one race that, through the sheer brute force of its own primitive consciousness, has spawned a divine power entirely separate from the pantheon of chaos. A power that provides them with an unconscious but almost absolute protection. We must now speak of the strange divine power of the Orcs, the power of Gork and Mork. Just as the Chaos Gods are the psychic gestalt of the fears and desires of humanity and other races, Gork and Mork are the living manifestation of the Orc psyche, spawned from the raw green energy of the Wa'ar. They are not gods of complex schemes or subtle temptations. They are gods who perfectly reflect the simple, violent soul of their creations. There is Gork, who is described as being brutal but kunin. He is the orc ideal of direct, overwhelming force, the power of a fist the size of a mountain crashing down upon the enemy. And there is Mork, who is cunning but brutal. He represents the orc ideal of trickery and cleverness, a concept that usually involves hitting the enemy when they are not looking or building a bigger, shootier gun. In the Empyrean, where belief is reality, the focused, unwavering, and utterly uncomplicated belief of 1 trillion orcs in their two gods makes them entities of incredible power. It is theorized that Gork and Mork may be among the most powerful beings in the warp cosmic brawlers, capable of wrestling with the Chaos Gods directly, not through intricate plots, but by simply kicking down their fortress doors and headbutting them. This brings us to their most significant function. They are a psychic shield of perfect, idiotic simplicity. One must ask, why are the Orcs a race whose entire existence is a monument to the very violence and slaughter that Khorne embodies so incredibly resistant to the temptations of chaos? The answer is that their spiritual needs are already met. The psychic space in an orc's mind is already occupied with no vacancies. Chaos whispers promises of power, but an orc already knows that power comes from being the biggest and the strongest, an act of worship to Gork. Tzeentch offers ambition and change, but an orc's only ambition is to lead a bigger Warg, a goal perfectly aligned with the worship of Mork. Nurgle offers resilience, but orcs are already one of the most resilient life forms in the galaxy. Slaanesh offers excess, but an orc's idea of ultimate sensation is simply a bigger and better fight. The promises of chaos are redundant. The orcs already have gods who give them everything they could possibly desire. Their faith is so absolute and so simple that the complex, insidious whispers of chaos find no crack to seep through. They are a force of pure, unaligned chaos, but they are almost totally immune to the influence of the great enemy. This divine simplicity is their greatest defense, an accidental and invisible shield that makes them a truly unique and self-contained force in the cosmic war. We have compared power in terms of potential and reality in terms of direct conflict and asymmetrical warfare, but now we must apply one final ultimate metric. The true measure of power is not the ability to win a war, but the ability to fundamentally rewrite the rules by which war is waged. It is the power to reshape the very fabric of the galaxy to suit your own design. By this standard, most of our contenders are revealed not as players, but as pieces on the board. Only a select few have the ability to change the game itself. These are the builders and the destroyers, the powers whose ultimate victory would result in a new galactic reality. The Necrons stand as the foremost architects of order. Their ultimate goal is not mere conquest, but the imposition of a final silent stasis. Their greatest weapon in this endeavor is not an army, but a network of immense blackstone pylons, negative energy projectors, capable of severing the connection between real space and the warp. A fully activated network could create vast zones of cosmic silence, calming the tides of the immaterium, grounding psychic powers, and rendering demons inert. If completed on a galactic scale, it would effectively turn off chaos, starving the dark gods of their power. It would sever the synaptic web of the Tyranid hive mind, reducing its swarms to mindless beasts. It would make interstellar travel impossible for the Imperium. It is the power to unilaterally delete the galaxy's spiritual dimension. The Tyranids offer a different, but equally profound reshaping. Their victory would be a biological reset. They do not conquer planets. They consume them, altering their very ecosystems until they are nothing but barren, digested rock. A galaxy won by the Tyranids would be a fundamentally different place, an empty vessel, its entire biological and historical legacy erased forever. And then there is chaos, which has already demonstrated its ability to break reality. The creation of the Great Rift, the Cicatrix Maledictum, was not a strategic victory. It was an act of cosmic vandalism. They tore the galaxy in half, creating a permanent wound where the horrors of the warp bleed into reality. They did not just conquer territory. They changed the very map for every other faction in existence. Against these cosmic engineers, the other powers are revealed as largely reactive. They are not fighting to change the galaxy. They are fighting to survive within the galaxy that is being violently reshaped around them. The Imperium of Man, for all its might, is a fundamentally conservative power. Its entire war effort is dedicated to desperately maintaining a crumbling status quo, to holding back the tide of change. It is a massive, fortified wall, but a wall that can only react to the blows of the battering ram. The Orcs are a force of chaos, but not of change. They are a feature of the galactic ecosystem of violence, not a force that seeks to alter it. A Warg may conquer a sector, but it has no grander ambition than to find its next fight. They are the storm, not the climate. The Tau Empire and the Eldari in their own ways are also reactive. The Tau seek to build their small, rational pocket of order. but their influence is regional. They are tending their garden unaware that the entire continent is on fire. The Aeldari, possessing the ancient knowledge to perhaps influence events on a grander scale, are hamstrung by their own decline. They are forced to spend all their energy and foresight simply navigating the currents of fate, not redirecting the river itself. They are fighting for survival on a chessboard whose rules are being violently rewritten by forces far greater than they can now muster. The true titans then are those who do not play the game, but who seek to shatter the board and build a new one in their own image. Having established that only a few powers possess the will to truly remake the galaxy, we are left with a final terrifying choice. Not a choice of who we want to win for. There are no heroes here, but a choice of what kind of damnation the galaxy will ultimately suffer. Let us peer into the abyss of the possible and witness the shape of the end times should any of these titans achieve their ultimate victory. Imagine first a victory for the Necrons. Imagine the Silent King triumphant, his legions, unified, the last vestiges of organic life scoured from 1,000,000 worlds. What would this galaxy look like? It would be silent, utterly and perfectly silent. The great network of Blackstone pylons would be complete, severing the connection to the warp forever. The chaotic sea of the immaterium would be calmed, its energies locked away from the material plane. There would be no more demons, no more psychers, no more whispers from dark gods. The Astronomicon would be extinguished, a forgotten light in a silent sky. The worlds themselves would be transformed into perfect, orderly tomb complexes, monuments of cold, eternal geometry. There would be no art, no passion, no ambition, no life. It would be a galaxy returned to a perfect, sterile baseline. A victory of absolute order, but it would be the cold, sterile order of the grave. An empire of dust and echoes ruled by soulless machines who have forgotten even the memory of what they lost. Now imagine a different end. Imagine the victory of the tyrannid hive mind. Picture the last desperate defenses of Terra falling, the last orc warg submerged, the last craft world consumed. What follows is not an era of a new ruler, but the final process of consumption. The Great Devourer does not build an empire, it cleans the plate. The galaxy that is left behind would be empty. A void of dead, barren rocks stripped of all biomass, their oceans drunk, their atmospheres inhaled. Not a single microbe would remain. There would be no monuments, no ruins, no ghosts, just a profound and total absence. The Hive Fleet itself would be gone, having gathered every scrap of genetic material into itself and moved on a silent shadow, drifting through the intergalactic void toward its next meal. This victory is the victory of hunger. It is the quiet, final stillness of a forest after an all-consuming fire, leaving behind not even ash, but a perfect and chilling emptiness. Finally dare to imagine the victory of chaos. Imagine the psychic shield of the Emperor finally failing, the great rift expanding to swallow the entire galaxy, the veil between reality and the warp torn away forever. This galaxy would not be silent, nor would it be empty. It would be a symphony of screams. It would be a permanent living nightmare. The laws of physics would become meaningless suggestions. Planets of screaming flesh would orbit suns of pure hatred. Time would loop and spiral, trapping mortals in the moment of their greatest agony for eternity. Every soul would be a plaything for the demons of the four great gods, their bodies and spirits endlessly warped to satisfy every depraved whim. It would be a realm of eternal ecstatic torment and sensation without limit. This is the victory of madness. It is not an end, but a transformation into a state of perpetual conscious suffering, an eternal asylum where the inmates are also the architects of their own damnation. These are the choices: silence, emptiness, or madness. This is the final prize for which the galaxy contends. We have stared into the abyss of three possible futures: a galaxy of perfect silence, a galaxy of perfect emptiness, and a galaxy of perfect madness. we are presented with a choice of annihilation. And in this choice, we find our answer. We began this long, bloody dissection with a single flawed question. Who is the strongest? We sought a champion, a victor, a final ruler. Now we see the vanity of such a question. There can be no winner. The very concept of winning is a mortal delusion, a lie we tell ourselves to give meaning to the slaughter. A victory for the Necrons is to rule over an empire of dust, having erased the very concept of life they ironically seek to reclaim. A victory for the Tyranids is to gain a single meal on an endless hungry journey before they move on, leaving nothing behind to rule. A victory for Chaos is to preside over an asylum of shrieking souls, a victory that is merely a state of perpetual, self-consuming agony. No faction can win in a way that preserves anything worth having. Their power is not a tool for building a better future, but a spade for digging the galaxy's grave a little deeper. So what is the answer? Who then is the most powerful force in the 41st millennium? It is not a legion. It is not a god. It is not an empire. The most powerful force, the true and only ruler of this dark age, is the very thing that all factions serve knowingly or not. It is war itself. War is the true eternal sovereign. It is a self-perpetuating sentient concept. It is the context in which all of existence is now framed. The Imperium is its unwilling slave, fighting out of fear and desperation. The Orcs are its most joyous worshippers, fighting for the sheer love of the act. The Necrons are its agents of order, seeking to end all conflict by killing everything that lives. The Tyranids are its biological imperative, war as an act of consumption. And the Chaos Gods. They are merely its clearest, most honest expression. They are the avatars of the fundamental principle that drives this galaxy conflict. They are the laughter that echoes over every battlefield, the patrons who grow fat on the endless, pointless struggle. Every other power is a tool, an instrument in a grand cosmic symphony of annihilation. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is no peace. There is only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods. The chaotic sounds of battle, which have been a distant undercurrent throughout the narration, slowly begin to fade away, replaced by the deep, cold hum of the void. The narrator's voice returns no longer the analytical scholar, but the weary philosopher, the final witness at the end of all things. And so our journey through the gallery of monsters is at an end. We have held each power up to the dying light of a forgotten star and examined its bloody claim to dominion. Look at them now, arrayed across the canvas of a million burning worlds, a grand tapestry of futility. See the Imperium of man, a trillion souls fighting and dying for an emperor they have never seen and a dream that has been dead for 10,000 years. They march forward in blind faith, their greatest strength, believing they are the shield of humanity, all while their very existence has turned the galaxy into the abattoir they so fear. See the Orcs, the only beings in this wretched universe who are truly happy. Their green tide washes across the stars in a state of joyous, idiotic bliss, their laughter echoing in the ruins of civilizations. They are the embodiment of war for war's sake, a force of nature that is too simple to ever comprehend the horror it inflicts or the horror that surrounds it. See the elegant, tragic Aeldari dancing their final sorrowful ballet. They fight with a grace and skill that is unmatched. Guided by visions of a future they are desperately trying to avert, all while being hunted by the ghost of their own past. They are the fading embers of a once great fire, and they know the darkness is coming for them. Look upon the small, defiant flame of the Tau Empire, so convinced of its own rational philosophy, so certain that progress and the greater good can bring order to the chaos. They are a child holding a meticulously crafted blueprint, trying to build a perfect tower of logic on the edge of a bottomless abyss, utterly unaware that the ground is crumbling beneath them. Behold the silent, waking legions of the Necrons emerging from their 60-million-year slumber. to reclaim a galaxy they see as their birthright. They seek to cure themselves of the curse of immortality by imposing a permanent silent death upon all living things, a final, perfect order that is indistinguishable from a tomb. Witness the great shadow that blots out the stars, the extragalactic hunger of the tyrannid hive mind. A force without malice, without hatred, without thought. It is the universe's ultimate predator, a being that will consume all history, all culture, all life, and all meaning, not out of cruelty, but simply because that is its nature. It is the final biological answer to the question of existence, and that answer is simply consumption. And in the dark spaces between them, all feel the eternal, patient, and seductive call of chaos. The mirror that reflects the darkest parts of every soul, the promise that your flaws can become your strengths, the ultimate truth that the enemy you fight is and always has been yourself. Each of them believes they are the protagonist of this story. Each believes they are fighting for something vital, survival, progress, order, enlightenment, or simply the thrill of the fight. But they are all wrong. They are not the heroes of their own stories. They are the deluded inmates of a galactic asylum, each screaming their own private truth into a cacophony of madness. They are the willing and unwilling cogs in a great grinding engine whose only product is death. This is the ultimate grimdark truth of this age. Power does not bring victory. It only brings a more profound and exquisite form of suffering. The Necrons achieved the power of immortality, and their punishment is to exist for eternity as soulless machines, forever yearning for the mortal life they threw away. The Tyrannids possess the power of perfect biological adaptation, and their punishment is to be slaves to a singular unthinking hunger, with no will, no art, and no self. The Imperium possesses the power of 1 trillion souls, and its punishment is that every single one of those souls must live in a state of fear, ignorance, and misery to fuel the dying corpse of their empire. Power in this galaxy is not a reward. It is a curse. It is the fuel for the fire that consumes all things. The humming of the void deepens. The screen, if there was one, is now pure black. Only the voice remains a final fading echo. So, who is the strongest after all our analysis, after all the blood and the horror? We return to that first naive question. And the answer is as empty as the void itself. The answer doesn't matter. Because in this cruel galaxy, the strongest is merely the last to die. And in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. A faint sound emerges from the silence. It is distant at first, then grows slightly louder, echoing as if in a vast, empty chamber. It is the sound of laughter. It is not joyous, but mocking, insane, and utterly without mirth. It is the laughter of thirsting gods of a mad universe of the void itself, amused by the sheer pointless spectacle of it all. The laughter continues echoing until it, too, fades into the final absolute silence.